Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyad Ravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Yatha sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So, where are we in our text?
We are on 4748 on page 188.
Who would like to chant this evening?
4748, page 188.
That's what I think he said.
Sabahya chittajo vatajo dhava nayasya vidyate tasya durastho vikrati kshayo. Change and destruction are far away from one to whom there is no movement, internal and external, produced by the mind or the vital air, prana.
So again, when we go into this state of nirvikalpa samadhi, and for the Raja yogis, we do the pranayama and then do the bandhas where the incoming and the outcoming breath is still, the mind still, the body is still, the mind is still. For the jnanis, we do this through self-inquiry. Turn the mind back on its source. We unknow. Swamiji used to call it when the last thought is thoughted before the next thought starts thoughting. In that space between your thoughts, with your attention turned inward, mind absorbed in the sun. Mind is the world is the mind. When the mind stops, then for me, the world stops. Next verse.
Sabahya bhyantare shante spande pavana chetasoho dhatava samsthitim dehe Tyajanti kadachana. When the movement of the vital air in the mind is extinguished or stilled, externally and internally, the essential ingredients of the body, the dhatus, never abandon their residence or continuance in the body.
They never what?
Abandon their residence in the body.
So we don't need to worry about, okay, if I go into samadhi, am I going to die? Actually, for many people, as the mind gets quieter and quieter, and we begin to intuit the unreality of the ego sense, there's a fear that actually arises that somehow I'm going to disappear. I'm going to be the hole in the donut. Hopefully we do disappear. But it's not death of the body. It's the death of the ego. Nothing to fear. Now, some Mahatmas, they go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, all their prarabdha is done, they keel over dead. But the vast majority of us, turning from Samadhi, the mind then remembers that experience. It's totally transformed. Body, mind, intellect functions in the world. But inside, the woman or man of knowledge knows I'm not a person. I never was. I just thought I was. Next one.
Yetu vijñāta vignēyāha vitaraga mahādhiyah vichinna granthaya sarve te swatantra tano sthitaha. All those who have known what is fit to be known are free from desire, possess lofty knowledge, and have the knots of ignorance torn asunder, remain in the body self-dependent or uncontrolled by external nature.
So for these great souls who have realized their self-nature, either through the path of yoga, meaning Raja Yoga, or jnana, meaning the path of the Vedanta, doesn't matter, they're both valid. The knots of ignorance, the knots of the heart are cut asunder. And the mind no longer goes after the world with craving. Because we see it for what it is, trinkets and baubles. It's a light show. It's nothing real. The mind stays home. The mind stays home. Next verse.
Sri Rama Uvacha, Sri Rama said, Ekabhyudayat chitta swarupenantar hite munehe maitradayo guna putra chayante mam prabhovata. On account of the rise of discrimination, and the natural state of the mind of the sage has vanished, where are virtues like friendship bound? Lord, tell me this.
So what about other feelings for the woman or man of knowledge? Can they have friends? Do they enjoy walking through the forest? Can they appreciate beautiful music? If all desire is gone, is this world just ashes, tasteless? Let's see what Vasishtha says. Going on.
Vasishtha Uvacha. Vasishtha said, Vividha Chittanashosti Sarupo Rupa Evacha Jivan Mukto Sarupasya Arupo Deha Muktijaha. The destruction of the mind is of two kinds, with form and without form. It is with form in liberation while living. That without form is born in liberation without the body.
So now Vasishtha is going to talk about being a liberated soul while the equipment still appears to exist in this world. And then after death, what happens to the Mahatma, the great soul, after they leave the body. Now, listen carefully. If the mark of the man or woman of wisdom is they know they are Brahman and they are not the body, we can actually say right here, right now, while other people may see the body, they are Videha Moksha. They are liberated beyond the body. So if you come to realize you are not your t-shirt, if your spouse throws your t-shirt in the garbage, you're still not your t-shirt. And if instead it goes into the laundry and you wear your t-shirt, you're still not your t-shirt. So this distinction between Jivan Mukta and Videho Moksha, it's more for people in ignorance. It's a meaningless distinction for the person of wisdom. With that in mind, let's go on.
Chitta Satteha Dukkhaya Chittanasha Sukhaya Tu Chitta Sattam Kshayam Nitva Chittanasham Upanayet. The existence of the mind is for misery, that is productive of sorrow. Destruction of the mind is for happiness, that is productive of happiness. Leading the reality of the mind to decay, let one bring on the destruction of the mind.
Yes. So this manonasha, this chittanasha, is that what he says?
Yeah, manonasha. Chitta sattam. So that's
the idea is
chittanasha.
Not to enfeeble the thinking ability. Having a frontal lobotomy is not the goal of the spiritual life. The destruction of the mind means this. The mind as an existent mind in ignorance is based on three ideas. Jiva Bhavana, I think I'm a person. I think the world of name and form is separate from me. And kartavya, obligatory action. I have to struggle to get happy. I like to use the image that it's like a card castle or a card house that children build. You put 3 cards on the bottom and all the other cards up. That's samsara. That's the whole structure of ego. But if at the bottom you pull one of the cards out, the whole thing goes. So again, it's not about, that's not what the scriptures imply. Those three ideas of the mind, they are. Does anybody, Mark, can you tell us what verse I dropped out at?
Yeah, it was 51, 52, I believe.
So the existence of the mind is for misery.
Yeah, that's it.
Did you guys hear me talk about the three thoughts that in essence are the mind?
No. Oh yeah, right after that you dropped out.
Okay, that's all I said. Okay, going on.
Sukha dukkhadhyavashtabdham asmi tyeva vinishchalam vidyamanam mano vidhi samsaradruma adokridam. Vidyamanam mano vidhi samsaradrumado adam. And the mind as existing, which is supported by happiness and sorrow, and very still, only on the cognition, I am. There's the longing of the tree of worldly existence at budding time. Note, legend has it that the Ashoka tree longs for the kicks of young ladies and the bakula for springing of mouthfuls of liquor, at budding time, just as pregnant women have peculiar longings during the period of pregnancy. And the tree of worldly existence brings forth the diverse objects. It is the mind which arises first, which in turn generates the world.
So it is the mind that generates the world. Again, it isn't that I don't see phenomena. That's not what's going on. In samadhi, I don't see phenomena. But when the woman or man of wisdom is operating in the world, Mark, can you let Justin in? He keeps trying to call me.
Yeah, actually, I'm not the host anymore. I think you guys are the host again.
Okay, let me get this. I think you should be able to get in now. Should I? Okay. Hopefully he tries again.
Okay.
Unless someone has Justin's number to let him ask him to come try.
Fang's trying to get into.
Fang's here.
I'm on, Jim. Thank you.
All right. You should be able to get in now. I think all those 6 calls for Justin. Okay. Would you read the English one more time? Last verse. I apologize, people. We have technical problems.
Know the mind as existing, which is supported by happiness and sorrow, and very still on the cognition I am. It is the longing of the tree of worldly existence at budding time.
So here in the language of poetry, he's going over what I talked about at the last verse. So it's the longing for the objects of the senses that keep the mind in place. The firm belief, that object makes me happy, this object makes me unhappy. I over here am an individual and I need the world to make me happy, or I need to fix myself to be happy. That's the mind, that's the world, that's the problem. And that's what keeps the whole thing running. By the way, this is not evil. This is the way the Lord has made the whole thing. And as the Buddha said, what's the first noble truth of the Buddha?
Suffering is pervasive.
Yes. Yes.
And selfish desires are the next cause of suffering, which is the second.
Yes.
So.
All right, next verse.
Sukha dukkha apat mado mandyam mahotsavah yam nayanti na vairupyam tasya nashtam mano viduh. They consider his mind as lost or destroyed, whom states of happiness and misery, misfortune, pride, dullness, and jubilation not lead to difference in nature or outlook.
So, when the situation is conducive, the mind's happy. When the situation is non-conducive, the mind is unhappy. When someone says something nice, I'm happy. When someone says something insulting, I'm unhappy. So the person of steady wisdom has stepped back from all of that. Watches the dvandvas, the pairs of opposites. Now in Gita, Krishna uses this term samadrishta, this equality of vision for the person of steady wisdom. And he does not say the mind of the person of steady wisdom is at peace because he always feels good and his emotions are always happy and his mind is always certain. He doesn't say that. It says he has steady wisdom who is the same. Heat and cold, pleasure and suffering, honor and dishonor. Meaning, those things continue. But we're no longer identified with them. Having a feeling, having a thought doesn't mean I need to react to it. This turns the volume up, way down. Any thoughts on this? Now, this verse is the description of a person of steady wisdom, but it also implies a practice for you and me to endeavor to step back. Swamiji's statement he used to make frequently at camp: shut up and get out. Still the mind, get out. Next verse.
Maitriyadibhi gunai yuktam vatyuttama vasanam bhuyo janna vinirmuktam jivan muktasya tanmanah sarupausau manonashah tatra bhanti guna ime. That mind of the person, liberated while living, endowed with virtues like friendship, is possessed of excellent mental impressions and is set free from rebirths. That is the destruction of the mind with form, when these virtues shine. Note, the spontaneous expression of noble virtues by a person liberated while living is an account of good vasanas for mental impressions, but these do not bind the mind to worldly existence. Such a mind is ever free.
So two things happen. First of all, through our lifetimes of practice, we have developed good sanskaras, good mental impressions. Not every person of realization has that. We have stories that some who were rascals, but by and large, through our years of practice, we've developed habits of good conduct. But also something else happens. For the woman or the man of wisdom, they see themselves in everyone. So there's a natural, spontaneous compassion, friendliness to all creatures. Any thoughts on this? Experts.
Sorry, I'm always on mute. What do you mean by some are rascals? I mean, don't you take our problem as ignorance and understanding? And if they truly understand, they'll do the right thing.
Rascals. Some may have behavior the world does not approve of. For example, some of the Agoris, they will sleep in graveyards. They will eat human flesh.
Are these people of knowledge? I mean, it seems like they're
yes,
not people.
They are.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because I have taken my issues as basically understanding and not understanding my own behavior, really. So, you know.
Well, I wouldn't worry about other people's behavior. We can't do other people's yoga, and it's of no import to decide if somebody you read about in a book is enlightened or not enlightened.
Okay.
But
I just take myself as quite similar to everyone with the same problems. You know, it's just ignorance and understanding.
My suggestion for those of us right here, right now, try not to be a jerk. It's pretty good basic teaching. But if you act like a jerk, let it go. No point in beating yourself up. Is that useful, Justin?
Yes, but I don't know. I just somewhat. I'll just end there. Thank you.
All right, we can talk about this more offline if you want. All right, next verse.
Aropastu mano nashah videha muktajo bhave samagragnya gunadharam tapi sattvam praliyate. The destruction of the mind without form, on the other hand, is produced by liberation without the body. Even the existence of the mind, which is the repository of all the foremost virtues, is completely dissolved.
So what the scriptures say for the Mahatma, when their prarabdha karma is finished, the karma of the body itself, the body dies, it goes to the gross elements, and the subtle body is this, it's spam. The subtle body dissolves and there's nothing left. Now, is this true or is this not true? This is what the scriptures say. But I always think, well, what about people who feel the presence of Jesus, or they feel the presence of, say, Shirdi Sai Baba, who's no longer in the body, or they feel Ramana Maharshi's presence? Is this just an idea they made up, or is there something that remains of these Mahatmas on the subtle planes? I don't know. But for the yogi, for the jnani, who has realized themselves, whether there's a body or not a body, whether there's a mind or not a mind, makes no difference. Makes no difference. So these eschatological questions, what's going to happen to me after I die, I would spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. Any thoughts on this?
Jim, earlier you posed a question that was something like, in the man or woman of knowledge, enjoy a walk in a park or have friends and friendships. Could you maybe return to that, say a little bit more about that?
Well, one of the benefits of knowledge is we see God, we see the self in and through the world. One of the things Swamiji says is, my love is like a fire hose. Whoever gets in front of me gets lost in it. So you and I, who may have egocentric attachments, I like this person, but oh, that person is such a dodo bird. Swamiji, no. Whoever was in his field of attention got all his love. And the world got all his love. He could see the presence of God in and through everything. Did he have personal friends? Well, kind of yes and kind of no. In a sense, everyone was his personal friend. Karmically, are there people we're drawn together with and have in our environment? Sure. Your wife should be your best friend. I don't know if that's helpful. All right, next verse.
Chittanashe virupakye kinchidapi vidyate naguna tatra harsha samvidah. The destruction of the mind named without form, not even a little of anything exists, neither virtues nor faults, nor the consciousness of pleasure or anger exists there. Note, the pure undivided consciousness is beyond the limitations of the mind.
So again, we can interpret this in two ways. First, when the Mahatma, when their body drops off, the mind dissolves, there's nothing left, but I remains. But think, if in this very body, I am not the body, I am not the prana, I am not the feelings, I am not the thoughts, I'm not even the darkness of ignorance. And that space of pure awareness. In me, I have no thoughts. In me, I have no form. In me, nothing manifests. Even though at the level of the body, I perceive this thing walking around. So in the end, I find much greater value. Strive hard for liberation right here, right now. Let the afterlife take care of itself. I had a student who used to sit in the chair that Ganesh has now. And he would share frequently that he wanted to get realized so he wouldn't have to come back again because this world was so filled with sorrow. That's a wrong approach. That's a wrong approach. What I say is, what if you're going to be in the body for the rest of eternity? This is it. Now, how are you going to think and feel and be? The only intelligent conclusion is Parama Vairagya, supreme detach. Then you don't care if the body rises or falls, or the mind exists or doesn't exist. It comes in material. All right, next one.
Iti Sri Vasishtha Sangrahe Vitahvyopakhyanam Nama Ashtadasha Sargah. Thus ends the 18th chapter, titled The Story of Vitahavya in the abridgment of Yoga Vasishtha.
All right. So again, in summary, what's really wonderful about this chapter, remember, Vitahavya was a person who needed to have control of the mind. So he went down the path of Raja Yoga, as opposed to the pure Vedanta, which is done through insight. Both paths are of value. Many people practice an integral yoga. They do some of the Raja Yoga stuff, but they also do self-inquiry. And the pitfall of the Raja Yoga path is you do all these exercises, but you hang on to your attachments. So the end result is what we call an inert samadhi, a jada samadhi. The mind is quiet and your experience is, I see blank. And as soon as the mind starts up, so do all your problems. Because there's still attachment to the world. The pitfall for those who take the path of jnana, we mistake paroksha jnana for aparoksha jnana. We mistake indirect knowledge. I've read all the scriptures and I thoroughly understand them. But there too, if there's still attachment to the world, attachment to the personal sense of self, no direct experience. The pitfall of both paths is the unwillingness to give up the world. Why? As long as I'm smooching that snake, I'm never going to see the road. It's that simple. Any thoughts on this? Next chapter.
Ekonavimshah Sarga, chapter 19. Chitta Prashamanam, the quenching or calming of the mind.
Oh,
Chittasya Dve Vijay, the two seeds or prime causes of the mind. Sri Rama Uvacha, Sri Rama said, Brahman Samsritimad Samsritimrid Brahman Samsritimriddhika Brahman Samsriti Mridvika Brahman Samsriti Mrid Samsriti Mrid.
You guys having issues again?
he's having a challenge with the Sanskrit because the
Oh,
sun
my apologies.
down.
I thought it was my apologies. I thought it was another freezing or something. My apologies.
Brahman Samsriti Mridvikala Kaya Vitata Kritehe Kim Bijam Tasya Kim Bijam Bijam Tasyapi Kim Bhavet. Revered sage, what is the seed or the prime cause of the grapevine or creeper of worldly existence, which has spread out its form or body? What is the cause of that seed? What is the origin even of that cause?
So, what is the cause for my ignorance and the creeper of samsara that causes this world to appear and for me to get entangled in it as a person? Very good question. Let's see what he says.
Vasishtha Vacha, Vasishtha said, Samsriti Pratate Bijam Shariram Vidhiragava Bijamasya Sharirasya Chittam Ashavashanugam. Raghava, know the body as the cause of the creeper of worldly existence. The origin of this body is the mind following the influence of or being submissive to desire.
Yes. So, what does he mean by this? The body is essentially a vehicle for the fulfillment of desire, for the garnering of experience. What do I mean by this? So if we're here in the Bay Area and we want to go to Hawaii, we can fly. We can take a cruise ship. Maybe take an ocean-going sailing vessel. That would be cool. Cannot take a car. You cannot take the train. It will not get us there. Now, Puneet and Soundarya just came back from Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So what vehicle did you use?
Flew there and then drove.
They flew and they drove. Why didn't you take a ship?
Wasn't an option.
Wrong vehicle. Not even a sailboat to go to the Grand Tetons? Too bad. So, because of my desires, meaning I have determined this kind of life will bring me joy, this kind of life will give me experience I think I need, this kind of life will give me recompense for my past transgressions. I decide on a body. I decide who my parents are going to be. What kind of health this body will be. Will it be male? Will it be female? Will I be born in the US? Will I be born in South America? Will I be born in India? Will I be privileged? Will I not be privileged? There was this wonderful, it was really quite funny. There was a post on Facebook, and there was this newborn baby. His face was all screwed up, and he was just howling. And the caption is, "What? Incarnated into a poor family again?" You know, we make these choices. So the body is an instrument for the fulfillment of desire. Impelled by the mind. Now, what is the nature of the mind? The mind is a pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding mechanism. From the moment you get up in the morning to the moment your head hits the pillow, that's all your mind is ever doing. I seek the good by my highest understanding of the good, and I avoid suffering. Now, I was watching this fascinating thing on the news this afternoon, and this talking head political scientist was saying that we used to see the world through the paradigm of good and evil. He says that's no longer the way people see the world in this country. Many people see the world in terms of winning and losing. All new paradigm. So is that one's idea of the good? If I win, that means I can lie, cheat, steal, hurt other people. If I think that's where good is, that's what I'll go after. So lifetime after lifetime, that's all that happens. Will it be better if I'm gay? Will it be better if I'm straight? Will it be better if I'm rich? Oh, I had so much trouble with that. It'll be better if I'm poor. Will it be better if I'm Asian? Will it be better if I'm Anglo? You know, I make all these choices. It's better if I'm a doctor. No, I'd be better if I'm an artist. I'll be happy when. It'll be better if. Round and round and round and round. Taking up a body, identifying with that body in order to fulfill desire. Now, it's not just a mindless circle. There is another force besides karma going on in the psyche. That is dharma. Dharma meaning the nature of a thing, the essence of a thing, without which it wouldn't be what it is. The dharma of a human being is God consciousness. It's self-realization. You can look at this from two ways. In one way, how do you know you are you? You don't see, hear, taste, touch, or smell, emote, or think yourself, yet you know you are. That's your dharma. The dharma of the self is self-knowledge. But it also means there's this soul impetus that in time drives us inward towards self-realization. The very nature of the mind to seek the good and to avoid pain is the Dharma working in us? Oh, yes. I want to go out and have ice cream. Well, go have ice cream. What you really want is yourself. I want to be rich. Okay, go be rich. But what you really want is yourself. Oh, I want a husband. I want a wife. Okay. What you really want is the self. And what's going to happen? You go for the ice cream. You go for the money. You go for the husband or wife. And you will maybe have some joy, but you will also have suffering. And then your mind will think, well, that didn't work out too well. Maybe I need different ice cream, different money, different boyfriend or girlfriend. We keep doing that until we get beaten into reasonableness. Then the mind starts to turn. And that's the Dharma. That's the Dharma. In the end, only God is good. All the rest is vanity. But it can take us millions of years to figure that out. Any thoughts on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I know this has probably been talked to death before, but the part where you were saying that people before reincarnation essentially choose their condition, I bristle hearing that because it just seems such a slippery slope to blaming people or holding people responsible for the conditions they're in. And I assume you don't believe that, so I guess, like, I don't know, how is it possible to hold those two thoughts?
Well, most of us are in situations of suffering because of our ignorance. And that includes people who are in war-torn countries, who are born with diseases or things like that. No God has done that. I can only share with you my own direct experience. So I've always, for example, had very poor eyesight this lifetime. The more prayer work I've done on it, it's only gotten worse. Am I being punished? Did I choose it? Well, I can only share with you stuff that's come up in my own meditations. So even in this life, when I was very young, I was hypersexual and driven into sexuality, largely visually. Many men are. I've always had the sense that at some point before I came in, I had this idea, maybe in another life. Well, if I couldn't see, then I wouldn't be so hypersexual. I also had the sense that I had an incarnation in Spain during the Inquisition. And I had this memory of having this hot poker and poking this person's eyes out. And deep inside, horrible regret for this. So it's not like I was being punished for it. Now, these are just insights that have come to me. Now, most people don't go looking for things like that. But karma is not punishment. So, for example, back in the 80s, when I was working with so many gay men, Fauci was talking about this on the news tonight, who got AIDS. And in the mid 80s, you got AIDS, you got 6 months to 2.5 years, it was a death sentence. Bus. They come and they want to study, they don't. And I get the question frequently, am I being punished? Well, no, and yes. You're not evil or bad. You have AIDS because you had unsafe sex. You caught a virus, that's all. But you did it in ignorance, but you did it. Why? Now, two people, one person's sexual activity put them at risk. Another person's sexual activity, other gay men, where they didn't get exposed. One's not better than the other. They may have different suffering. They may have lost their spouse. They may have ended up becoming an alcoholic out of grief or fear, trash their lives. You know, we all suffer for all sorts of very different reasons. Yoga says it's all karma. And much of it is groups. I don't think necessarily individual Ukrainians are thinking this, that, or the other thing. But, you know, groups of people have karma too. One of the things that I always thought was very interesting, the war that fundamentally broke the march of American imperialism was the Vietnam War. We were defeated because we waged a war halfway around the world against a population that didn't want us there, who defeated the most powerful military in the world through guerrilla tactics. Oh, by the way, that's how we got our independence from Britain. Very interesting comment.
That's very interesting. I like that about getting the independence from Britain in the same way. Cool, thank you.
Same kind of war. It got too expensive for Britain. Finally got too expensive for the US. But
same thing happened in Afghanistan and
if you look deeply, you can see that there are chains of causations. This is not about good and evil, and it's not about people deserving. Vast majority of the choices we make that bring us suffering, we do in ignorance. I cannot tell you how many good, kind, loving men I knew who died. But let me tell you about Michael Strong. Michael Strong was a printer. Michael Strong was diagnosed with AIDS. Michael Strong allowed his diagnosis to be the impetus for incredibly complete renunciation. He was a deeply enlightened remember sitting in my living room. I just And I'm not sure that would have happened if he hadn't had AIDS. I can remember when he was dying, I always went to visit him by his bedside, and he had Kaposi sarcoma in his brain, which made him delusional. And his parents were there taking care of him. And I couldn't help myself. I said, Michael, this is a lucid boy. What's it like to lose your mind? He was lying in bed, all shriveled, and he says, just another dream, Jim, just another dream. And it was a grace-filled and beautiful death of a young man in his 30s. So was it a tragedy or not? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Maybe he chose to have AIDS so that he might realize himself. We never know. We never know. But we're not being punished because we're sinners. Please understand that. We are not punished for our sins, but we are certainly punished by our sins. If you're a 20-year-old and you think you can go smoke crystal meth and do hookups with impunity, as an old drug addict, alcoholic, I would say, oh, don't go down that road. You know, we jokingly say you can tell an alcoholic addict, but you can't tell them much. People have to hoe their own row. And a lot of this is mystery. It doesn't mean we're going to be able to figure it out intellectually. But it's something certainly worth meditating. You don't have to believe me, by the way. This is just the conclusions I've come to.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Was that useful to anybody else? I hope so.
Oh, yes,
right.
Absolutely, Jim.
Yeah, very useful.
I related, yeah.
Now, on the other hand, when I got my job at St. Augustine, I was 52, starting a career as a director of music in a Catholic church. And I had this sense, oh, I've done this for lifetimes. This is easy. I know how to do this. And I had a blast for 15 years. I had memories of having been in churches in Italy, sung in big cathedrals and stuff like that. I had done this job over and over again. It was a breeze. I think that's how we can explain genius. Mozart at the age of 5, being brilliant. Who knows what he was like in prior lifetimes, the study he put in and stuff like that. Shankara had I think there are 2 stories, one that he did it at 5, one did it at 8. He not only mastered the Upanishads, but I think that's when he wrote his commentaries on them. That's mind-boggling to think of someone that subtle and perceptive at that young age. What was he doing the lifetime before? You know? So it's not all just what we would perceive in the world as negative. It's positive things as well. All right, we'll quit here. I think this is a good place to stop. Any other thoughts on this topic before we go on? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all. Why is my phone hot? What makes your phone?
Thank you. Good night.
Jim, I was reminded of this book that I read by Viktor Frankl on Man's Search for Meaning.
By whom?
Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Have you read the book?
I've heard of it.